We're going to speak on what a true dissident means and a few examples of what dissidents are throughout history. But a true dissident is a beacon of resistance against the oppressive structures that seek to undermine human freedom and dignity, morality, freedom of thought. Throughout history, dissidents have been those brave individuals who, despite their risks, their own safety and well-being, stand firmly against systems of corruption and control and injustice. They challenge the established order not just for personal gain, but because they understand that to remain silent in the face of tyranny, it is to become complicit with it in its erosion of the fundamental human rights. It's to otherwise give their agency over to thugs. Otherwise, a true dissident is driven by an unwavering commitment to those principles of liberty and moral integrity, recognizing that the essence of humanity lies in the exercise of free will, a gift that's bestowed upon us of all creation. From the philosophers of the ancient Athens to those who defied autocratic rulers, to the civil rights activists who opposed segregation and systemic oppression, the true dissident embodies the courage to speak out truth to power, to uphold the sanctity of human freedom, and to inspire others to question and resist the unjust authority. For this series on dissidents, we'll highlight two historical figures here whose lives exemplify what it means to stand against oppressive systems in the defense of human dignity and freedom. Sophie Scholl, 1921 to 1943, young, along with her brother Hans and other members of the White Rose movement, courageously opposed the Nazi regime in Germany World War II. As a young student, Sophie risked her life distributing anti-Nazi leaflets that condemned the atrocities of the Holocaust and called for active resistance against Hitler's totalitarian rule. Despite knowing the immense danger she faced, she held firm in her belief that true freedom required the courage to speak out against evil, even at the cost of her own life, arrested and executed for her actions. Sophie Scholl's legacy reminds us that a true dissident should be defended in truth and in humanity in the face of overwhelming fear of oppression. These people should be protected. Second person is Nelson Mandela, 1918 through 2013. One of the most known dissidents of the 20th century, having spent 27 years in prison for his efforts to end apartheid in South Africa. Despite facing intense persecution, Mandela never wavered in his fight for equality and justice for his people. His unwavering commitment to nonviolent resistance and his willingness to endure great personal suffering in the pursuit of freedom made him a symbol of resistance and hope. Mandela understood that the relationship with his fellow South Africans, black and white alike, could only be built on a foundation of mutual respect and a shared humanity, grounded in the principles of natural law, and justice. Upon his release, he led his nation towards reconciliation and healing, showing that a true dissident does not merely oppose oppression, but seeks to build a better and more just society in its replacement. To truly understand what it means to be a dissident is one that should recognize the profound relationship between the dissident and the society they challenge. The dissident isn't just in opposition to a regime of oppressive systems, but it is deeply abiding a relationship with the principles of truth, principles of justice, and the principles of having that inherent value that every individual should be carried in. To be in a relationship with the dissident is to be connected to their cause, connected to their struggles, connected to their aspirations for that better world change that they wish to see. It means valuing not just what the individual feels, but valuing everything that they stand for, understanding that the fundamental fight for freedom, fight for their humanity, is also a fight that has to be upkept with that true relationship with them. A true dissident operates in the realm of divine truth and natural laws, seeking to align their actions with these universal principles bestowed upon us by our Father in heaven. Their commitment to freedom, despite opposition, is a testament to their belief in a higher moral calling, an order that transcends human-made laws and systems of control. It reminds us, like breathing, that true freedom is an essential aspect of our being, something that cannot be taken away without extinguishing the very essence of what it means to be alive, or stealing up the air in which we breathe and producing air that's not good for us to breathe. In a world where so many choose comfort over truth, the dissident is a rare, powerful force for good, breathing life into that struggle for human rights and the unyielding pursuit of a just and more free society. Jesus, for example, was a dissident, was one of the history's most profound dissidents, challenging, or is, in my view, the most profound challenging dissidents because of the religious, societal, political structures of his time, with a message that transcended human law and authority in the all era where the Roman Empire ruled with an iron fist, and the religious elite maintained a rigid and exclusionary system of belief. Jesus preached a radical gospel of love, mercy, and justice. He defied the religious authorities by healing on a Sabbath, associating with the marginalized. He openly criticized the hypocrisy of the Pharisees, how they acted in religious ways. He spoke of the kingdom of God that valued the meek, poor, and the persecuted ones. A direct challenge to the power and privilege of both the religious establishment and the Roman state. His teaching on love and loving one's enemies, turning the other cheek, and blessing those who persecute you were revolutionary, opposing the accepted norms of retaliation and tribal loyalty. By proclaiming himself as the Son of God and forgiveness of sins, he confronted the very core of the religious leaders' authority. Ultimately, his dissidence led to his crucifixion, a political execution aimed at silencing his influence. Yet his resurrection and subsequent spread of Christianity proves that it is true, and his dissidence, rooted in divine truth and love, can never be extinguished by earthly powers. The founding fathers as dissidents as well of the United States were dissidents in their own right, rebelling against the tyranny of the British Crown in the pursuit of a society built on the principles of freedom, self-governance, and natural rights. They risked their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor to oppose what they saw as an unjust and illegitimate rule of law. Thomas Jefferson, as principal author of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson articulated in the revolutionary idea that all men were created equal and endowed with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. His initial draft condemned the institution of slavery as a moral blight, but his passage was removed due to the pressure from the other delegates that were not willing to confront the deeply entrenched economic interests of the slavery to the state. Despite its compromise, Jefferson's vision laid in the groundwork of the future generations challenged the contradictions of the nation's claiming freedom while also practicing enslavement. So he was very opposed to the system and how it was being run. John Adams was another one. Was a fervent advocate and independence of the critic of British oppression. He played a pivotal role in rallying support for the revolution, using his legal and rhetorical skills to argue that the colonies had a right to self-determination. His dissent was rooted in a belief that a just government must derive its power from the consent of the governed, from the people. And though we see that going on today, are they getting consent to rule how they are ruling today and to move about how they are moving? The way I see it, they haven't had any right to do everything they had done. But Benjamin Franklin's another one, a statesman, inventor, philosopher. Franklin was a vocal critic of British policies and an advocate for American unity. His diplomatic efforts were crucial in securing French support for the revolution to happen. A bold move that significantly altered the course of history. His dissonance was not merely against British rule, but for the potential of a new kind of nation, one built on enlightenment principles of reason and freedom. These men were not perfect, and the revolution that they did not lead fully realized its promise of liberty at all. However, their willingness to defy the empire and lay the foundations for new nations to remain a powerful example of principled dissidence is a remarkable cause. I think there needs to be more men like that. Another example is the tank man at the Tiananmen Square. Imagine that, standing up against the column of tanks during the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989, one of the most iconic symbols of courage in the resistance in modern history. After the Chinese government violently suppressed peaceful pro-democracy protests, this lone individual stepped into the path of advancing tanks, armed with nothing but 2 shopping bags. His act of defiance was a powerful statement against the brutal authoritarianism of the Chinese Communist Party. Despite the overwhelming odds and the immediate threat to his life, Tank Man stood his ground, even climbing onto the tanks and speaking to the soldiers inside. His fate remains unknown, but the courage and the message of his actions continue to inspire dissidents around the world to be embodied in the essence of what it means to stand up to a regime, stand up to that evil, stand alone, vulnerable, unarmed, and seemingly invincible force, driven by a belief in the right to freedom and dignity for all people. Lukewarm Christianity and the call to discipleship, fellowship with men, and stewardship. Many who claim to follow Christ today are often criticized for their lukewarm faith, more concerned with the comfort of conformity rather than living out the radical message of the Gospels. Jesus himself warned against this in Revelation, saying, "I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish that you were either one or the other." He exclaimed this in Revelation 3:15. To truly follow Christ is to embody his call to discipleship, which demands more than passive belief. It requires action, sacrifice, and willingness to stand against injustice, even at great personal cost. Being a Christian dissident means embodying that love, compassion, and courage that Jesus taught. It means speaking out against the modern-day equivalents of the injustices he's confronted, whether that be a systemic racism, and economic exploitation, or political oppression. It is not enough to profess one's own faith. One must live it boldly and authentically, without having to bear the cross of the dissidents around the world that often prefers for that kind of darkness of complicity to that light of truth. We should be protected in being able to come out and say what we have to say. until my next one on Duress, Dissidents, and Deadly Force, I hope you guys stay safe and have fun. Thanks for being here.